The player that got traded for Matthew Stafford was Jared Goff. Jared Goff is now on the Detroit Lions. And listen, I don't think Jared Goff is a bad quarterback. I think he's a good quarterback. He gets unfairly criticized, I think, sometimes, even though he has been very inconsistent. And I think he did hold back the Rams. But last season, he completed 67% of his passes, almost threw for 4,000 yards, had 20 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. Do you think this was a good move for the Lions to move off from Stafford and to get Jared Goff in the building?
Well, first of all, I would say this deal was a no-brainer. I saw the list of, supposed offers from other teams. Nobody else was giving you this kind of draft capital, 2 first-round picks and a third. So,
And a starting quarterback.
Yeah. Regardless of what you think about the quarterback swap, I think the picks make it a no-brainer. First things first. Second of all, as critical as I've been of Jared Goff, I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I think he's an average to above average quarterback, and I think it'll be perfect for the Lions. They're not going to be a terrible team this season, I don't think. I like the fit with Anthony Lynn as the offensive coordinator and Jared Goff. They could run a run-heavy offense with the play action mixed in, which is what Jared Goff was accustomed to in Los Angeles with DeAndre Swift in that backfield. I like that fit. So I think it'll be the right offensive system for Jared Goff, and I think he'll also be a perfect bridge quarterback to somebody like a quarterback that they could get this year in Lance. I think would be a great option for them. They could groom him under Jared Goff for maybe a season or two, and I don't know how the money is going to work out on Jared Goff's contract, but if it's the same way it was in Los Angeles, they won't have to take on as much of a cap hit to move him in a season or two. So say they draft a quarterback this draft, and they sit him behind Jared Goff for a year or a year and a half, they could move him 2 years from now if they boost his value. Sort of like, I know this is crossing sports, but a Chris Paul to the Thunder. They brought him in, they kind of revitalized his image a little bit, and they traded him off for more assets. So I think it's a great move for the Lions to remain at least competitive right now. I don't think they'll be a playoff team, but I think that they'll win games, and I think they'll be in a bunch of close games. I like their coaching moves, and I think that Jared Goff is going to be a good fit with Anthony Lynn. They did a great job getting the picks, and I'm excited to see how that marriage works out, and if they do draft a quarterback to groom under Goff.
If we're just being honest, we're calling a spade a spade. The Lions were going nowhere with Matthew Stafford. That's just the reality of it. They were getting ready to go through another rebuild, and we talked about this. When if the Lions trade Matthew Stafford and they get a first-round pick, now what do they do at quarterback? They have that question mark. I wouldn't have been confident in starting Trey Lance day one. I wouldn't, especially in Detroit. I would not be confident in starting any quarterback outside of Trevor Lawrence on day one. So because of that, Jared Goff, the Lions now get a quarterback in Jared Goff who's a starter in this league, and he's gotten a bad rap, but he's a great leader. He's a great person, and he's a good quarterback. He at his best, he's a top 15 quarterback. At his worst, he's between 20 to 25. He's not a horrible quarterback, and I think this Lions team has some talent, and I loved what they did within the coaching staff. You hired Dan Campbell, who I think is a culture changer. Anthony Lynn, who's a good offensive coordinator, even though with the Chargers he had some of his debacles, and Aaron Glenn, who's coming from the Saints as well to join Dan Campbell. For me, the Lions need almost everything, right? They need secondary because Jeff Okudah has been underwhelming, and even though I hope his career gets on track, right now it's not a surefire hit at that pick, so there's still a question mark there. Javon Tavai has not been good at linebacker. They need an inside linebacker. They need an outside linebacker to replace Christian Jones, and they need another edge rusher. Even though Romeo Okwara was good, was that a breakout season, or was just that a fluke season on a contract year? There's a lot of question marks. I think on the offensive line, you have 3 building blocks what's their names? In Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, and Taylor Decker. You have 3 building blocks there, so you need to get another tackle and possibly a guard. And then I think in terms of like your weapons on the outside for Jared Goff to work with, the only one right now that they have is TJ Hawkinson. DeAndre Swift is there, but where's Galladay going to go? Where's Marvin Jones going to go? Are they going to re-sign Kenny Galladay? So now because of that, Jared Goff or whatever rookie QB that would have been placed in the situation is now in a situation with nothing to work with. Jared Goff might be the starting quarterback for the Lions, and his best receiver might be Quentin Cephas. So that's a huge question mark. The Lions, I think they'll sign some free agents. If it was me, I'd re-sign Kenny Golladay. I think with an offense of Kenny Golladay, if healthy, TJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift, I think you can win some games. And of course, if Aaron Glenn gets the most out of that defense, especially out of Jeff Okudah, they can make a run. I never thought that the talent was a problem with Detroit. I always thought that the coaching was the problem. If this is the right coaching staff, we can start to see the Lions trend in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think it's all about the coaching staff, like you kind of hit on there. I think that they have the talent to win games, and like I said, I've been very critical of Jared Goff, but you can certainly win games with him at quarterback. The Rams have shown that. They went to a Super Bowl with him, and they made the playoffs this past season and won a playoff game with him playing the majority of the snaps, although he didn't get the start. So you can certainly win games with Jared Goff at quarterback. There's no question about it. They have some talent on the offensive side of the ball. Depending on if they bring back Golladay or Marvin Jones, they need to make some moves in this offseason for sure, because they're losing a lot on that offensive side of the ball, but it's a big free agency class too. There's a lot of options out there at wide receiver. So as long as, even if they lose Golladay, as long as they restock with another really number one option, or at least borderline number one option. I like Cephas as a number two type, but he can't be your number one going into the year. And that defense, I feel like, has a lot of talent. It was just crazily underutilized by Matt Patricia. He did such a bad job that I feel like the entire team took a hit because of it. And that's including Jeff Okudah. I feel like he's going to get back on track now. And it's also the toughest position to play as a rookie, in my opinion, cornerback. I feel like every rookie cornerback has a very tough time coming into the league, so I would expect him to turn it around. I think they're headed in the right direction, but it all depends on what this coaching staff does, and I feel like that will decide the fate of Jared Goff, but I don't think he's their long-term answer. I feel like he's just going to be a bridge to a guy like Lance or another quarterback that they find, whether it's this year or next year.
In 2 seasons, the Lions can move on from Jared Goff and basically take on no dead cap if they move on from Jared Goff. These are some key free agents the Lions are going to have. Golladay, Okwara, Marvin Jones, Daron Harmon, Matt Prater, and Jamal Agnew. I think Marvin Jones is gone. I think Golladay is a guy they got to look at and try to re-sign. And for me, when we talk about the draft, Trey Lance is the name that jumps out, but I wouldn't be surprised if during the draft process he moves up and Justin Fields is the one that drops, because I think Justin Fields is the one with the most question marks right now in terms of scouts, and he might be the one to drop. And the Lions can get a huge prize if they draft Justin Fields and they have the right coaching staff around him to groom him, and Jared Goff is there. I think he'll do an excellent job. For me, I see 7 wins if everything goes right next year for the Lions. And I also think this. I think that in terms of their weapons, I did a Madden rebuild with them because I was curious to see how I could build their team. I didn't sign back Kenny Golladay, and I didn't sign back Marvin Jones. In free agency, what I did with the Lions is that I signed Corey Davis from Tennessee, and I signed Alan Lazard. So the receiving core was Corey Davis, Alan Lazard, Cephas. I drafted Tutu Atwell and TJ Hawkinson. So I don't think that's that bad, even though it's not good. But the Lions have picks, so they can draft a wide receiver in the second round or third round. Kenny Golladay was not a first-round pick. They can possibly hit on a wide receiver there. So there are different options for the Lions to go to. But my final point is that I think going from Stafford to Goff wasn't as big as a downgrade as a lot of fans like to think, because one of the position that the Lions are in terms of building their team, they're going full rebuild mode right now. And also because I don't think the gap between Stafford and Goff is as crazy as a lot of people are making it sound like.
Yeah, I think this was one of those rare trades where everybody won. Both teams got exactly what they were looking for their time frame that they were looking to get it in. Matthew Stafford gives the Rams a better chance to win a Super Bowl, and Jared Goff is a good rebuilding, potentially bridge quarterback for a Lions team that doesn't have those expectations. And maybe without those expectations, like there was in Los Angeles, he can get his career back on track to that Super Bowl type level that he played at that season. I'm excited to see what the Lions do. I think they could be anywhere between like a 5-7 win team. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but they'll be competitive, and they'll be one of those teams like this year. There's a couple teams where every week I felt like you looked at their schedule and like they could put up a fight in this one. They could pull off an upset here. And I feel like that will be the Lions next season, depending on their offseason. I like what you did in the Madden rebuild because Davis and Lazard, I would imagine, are going to be cheaper than Galladay and Marvin Jones. So if you can, get cut off some of that money while also bringing in two pretty solid weapons, I feel like that would be a great move for the Lions. But they have to bring back some weapons. Otherwise, you're just throwing Jared Goff off the boat with no life vest.
Yeah, I agree. I think that both teams won this trade, and I think the Lions are going into this rebuild with a lot of assets and a starting caliber quarterback. They don't have to throw the rookie quarterback into the fire if they do draft and go that way. But we'll see what they do in the draft.